And why did American Eagle hire a young white woman with perfect breasts to do their jeans commercial? Why not a fat black woman? Huh? Why not hire a 400-pound Shamika with a perm, twerking, maybe eating some fried chicken or something? Why not hire that fat bitch? And why did American Eagle hire a young white woman with perfect breasts to do their...
That can't be real. There's no way. How could that...
jeans commercial? Why not a fat black woman? Huh?
Gotta watch out for that AI. Good morning. How you doing, guys? Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Networks. Nice to see 50 people are already here, and we've just gotten started. Thormock, Caleb Vanderfelts, Bruce Burtwhistle, Kermode Bear, Southcott from Alderney, St. Selma, in Jam 77. Let's get this party started. Thursday. You know, Friday is just sitting there. Just waiting for you. It's like, it couldn't be Friday. Could have had to be Thursday. Well, we're glad to have you here on Thursday, July 31st. You are officially tuned in to the Wake Up America show. This is the only show where liberty isn't just an idea. It is a caffeine-fueled crusade. Give it up for the big L. Where a big L is not a bad L, it's a good L. Bad L being a loser, which, as Stephen Rue knows, no losers here. Robbie Thurman's here as well with his little pineapples. Good morning, pineapples. Looking very good and very nice.
Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good and very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good and very nice.
I had an article that did really well yesterday. It was released in Human Events magazine. And it's all about... Well, I'll just set it up for you. Here's a question for your soy-sipping nephew in Portland. If more people in Europe die from heat waves than Americans do from guns, does that make air conditioning a human right or a white supremacist plot? Because it turns out that while Europeans are smugly judging us from across the Atlantic, they're actually cooking themselves to death. Literally. That's right. The gun-obsessed headlines are missing the real killer, a lack of blessed, capitalist, God-fearing climate control. What are you talking about, Austin? I will explain, but wait, there's more. The Wall Street Journal wants you to survive a mass shooting by playing dead. No! That only works with possums. No! And is there another marsupial that plays dead? I know that it doesn't work so well for mammals. And mass shooters aren't bears. That's the brilliant advice, though, that you get from the Wall Street Journal. Don't worry, though. I'm going to give you guys a breakdown from someone who's actually been trained, not just trauma bonding with a keyboard. At 8 o'clock, unfortunately, yikes, Camellia Peterson will not be here as she had some important business to handle this morning. She will be back next week. But don't worry, if you guys missed my interview with science fiction author Devin Erickson about the latest dating drama earlier this week, then I'll play that for you then at 8 a.m. Central Time, and it'll be a fantastic guest. And at 8:30 a.m., it's Thursday, so Daniella Pentsak is here, the host of Culturama, and she's here to expose why the left is throwing these tantrums over Sydney Sweeney for allegedly loving America. Apparently, if you're young, blonde, and not apologizing for being happy and having enormous, beautiful breasts, you're a fascist. Fascist. No. So, what do we got? We got facts, we've got firepower, and philosophical smackdowns ahead. So grab your coffee, adjust your tinfoil crown, everybody, and settle in. This is Wake Up America, and today we're fighting fire with Robbie Thurman's favorite thing, Freon. Raindrops on roses, AC with cool kittens, brown paper packages tied up in strings, no? Don't forget, too, bonus on bonus on bonus. So we've started a new bonus program. For those who are aware, the bonus program is new and it's fresh and exciting. Now, you still get the same bonus content that you're used to if we raise $75 on the show today. You will unlock our mini documentary that we have produced for you today. And today's is awesome. It's a doozy. It's about Mark Twain and his visit to the Holy Land and his first successful book that he wrote. And I hope you guys unlock it because it's a really nice, quick little mini documentary about Mark Twain's first book that he wrote about going to visit Israel and talking about Christians and Christianity. So if we hit $75, you still get the amazing brand spanking new mini documentary. If we don't unlock it, if we don't raise $75, then of course, you know the rules, it goes away. And then of course, you never have the chance to see the second stage. It's like a rocket. It has many stages. So if we hit $75, you'll unlock our mini documentary. But if we hit $100 today, then it's the choose your own adventure. And I've already decided that if this is successful, so far it's been successful every day of the week. If it's successful, then I'm going to turn this into its own branded segment for the future, a defense against the dark arts class. For those who are enjoyers of that turf, J.K. Rowling, T-E-R-F, not T-U-R-F, turf, trans-exclusionary radical feminist. Everybody knows what I'm saying? Everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? Trans-exclusionary radical feminist.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Well, it is commie gobbledygook. No, it's not. But only because she's not a commie gobbledygook. She's just a turf is someone who pushes back against commie gobbledygook. Thank you, Norm Macdonald. And so if we hit $100 raised on the Wake Up America show today, then you will get your Choose Your Own Adventure Defense Against the Dark Arts class. So get those Rumble rants in early and often. Let's start planting the seeds of liberty and that bonus content, like Dad Bod Baboon, who said the losers upset about Sweeney in this ad show how ignorant they are and that they do zero research before bitching. American Eagle has done many ads before with diverse people. The Sweeney ad is rare. I think that the answer to this is really simple. It's that profits are down. Nobody wanted a 500-pound Sharquisha selling them denim jeans in American Eagle. People happen to like thin, beautiful women. Now, if they'd had Beyonce up there in various stages of undress, I don't know it's necessarily a racial thing, although the left is trying to make it a racial thing because she was talking about her jeans and she has good genes, which I always thought it didn't used to be something where it was like white supremacy where people were like, oh man, it's good looking. He's got good genes. I was like, do you think that Beyonce doesn't have good genes? Damn, girl, she's got good genes. Genes. It's a racial thing, though, because it's all about your DNA. And, of course, everyone knows that your DNA is encoded. Like, you cannot escape your DNA. You are ingrained in your DNA, and you are how you are, and there's no changing it. There's no fixing it. Give me the boy, and I'll give you the man. Hell no. You are what your genes say you will be 100%, and nothing about that has changed, and there is no such thing as free will. I'm sorry, guys. Liberty is bull. Yeah, shut it. You boo. Don't give me I've seen what makes you cheer. So Dad Bod Baboon, we are $5 towards the $75 and $100 bonus content goals today. Thanks to you, brother. We appreciate that. So here's a story that should blow the lid off every smug cappuccino sipping Europhile who's ever wagged a finger at us for our gun culture. Not that they will, but more people in Europe die from a lack of air conditioning than Americans die from gun violence. And this is one of those stories that's really fresh, hot off the presses. I published it yesterday as I was doing research for this story. It's only been in the last couple of months that this story has started to bubble up. And I found this because of an economist by the name of Tyler Cowen and some of the really good work that the Free Press is doing over there, Barry Weiss's outfit. Some of the stories that we're hearing out of Europe, that 250 people, I think, have cooked in their apartments this year not just because they don't choose to use air conditioning. I'm sure that many people probably would choose, but they basically make the thing darn near illegal, and it is illegal some places, and some neighbors are even snitching on each other if they see that their neighbor has a window unit. In some cities in Europe, they will snitch on each other. You have to pay fines if you get caught. It's insane. Let me say this again. More people in Europe. This is so it can sneak past the TSA checkpoint in your leftist cousin's brain. Okay, let me say this slowly. Heat kills more Europeans than guns kill Americans. That's not a hypothetical. It's not a Twitter hot take. It's not some right-wing blog, right? It's not extreme opinion on a podcast. What's up, John Rail? It's an inconvenient real-world, stats-backed fast. A 2023 study from the Nature Medicine found that more than 61,000 people died in Europe from heat-related causes in 2022 alone. And that number is likely undercounted. Compare that with the number of gun-related homicides in the United States, around 14,000 a year, according to the CDC. Now, this is not mass shootings, not suicides, not accidents, homicides, intentional murders. Okay, so these are intentional murders. So if we follow the progressive logic, if deaths equal moral failure, right, that's what the argument is, the gun deaths are a moral failure, then Europe is committing a slow and sweaty genocide every summer. Boy, you know how the Europeans and the leftists and some people, even on the right, they love everything's genocide. It's a genocide. It's a genocide. Well, it's a climate genocide that Europe is committing on their own people. They're rich countries, too. I mean, relative to the rest of the world, not to the United States. It's not that they can't afford air conditioning. This is happening because of bad ideas. This is ideological austerity disguised as climate virtue. They ration electricity. They regulate thermostats. They discourage AC the same way that New York City discourages concealed carry, by making it expensive, bureaucratic, and borderline illegal. Reminds me a little bit of during World War II, they would have people ration, and they would also have people collect metals and steel, and they didn't really need it. A lot of the metal and steel found its way to the bottom of lakes. They didn't actually use a lot of the leftover recyclables that that the government was asking for. Americans, save your metals and cans and turn them in, and then they would just dump them at the bottom of the lake because they couldn't use them for whatever reason. It was just there as a way to make people feel austerity. It was a way to make the American people feel like they are part of the war effort, right? Even though it was useless, which of course means if it was useless, it's stupid. It's a stupid thing the government does. The government will intentionally make you suffer. The government will intentionally kill you just to punish you for behaving in ways that they don't like. Europe is a perfect example with their climate change. Did you know that in Prohibition days, there were cases of the government actually spiking alcohol to poison alcohol, and people died from getting sick from this government poisoned alcohol because they wanted to punish the immoral imbibers of the devil's drink. And Europe does this with air conditioning. Climate change, says John and Casey. Ooh, climate change. Ooh, the changing climate. I liked it better when they said global warming, because then they knew that they were screwed, because when you say global warming, so, well, is the Earth actually getting a little cooler? We're actually in a cooling period, but, that's climate. The climate is changing. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Climate's always changing. It's been changing since we were a ball of magma, molten ball of magma. We got the hey-oh, deep beneath the cover of another faded wonder, and it's right as rain. Steffi for Liberty's here. That's my smoking hot redheaded libertarian wife. What's up, Steffi? Everybody say hi. So Europe made the wrong trade. They said, we'll save the planet, even if it kills grandma. Remember all of the grandma killing that was going on during COVID-19? Meanwhile, over here in the big bad US of A, we've got rooftop compressors purring like lions, strip mall gun stores next to Chick-fil-A's, and we're still burying fewer people than Europe. God bless America. That's because liberty works. Capitalism works. And comfort is not a sin. In fact, it's quite magical. Click that like button if you haven't already, guys. So this all raises a question that no one wants to ask. What if the European model is dead wrong? What if the whole premise of social democracy, this tightly controlled, nanny knows best state isn't just annoying? What if it's deadly? What if in the left's rush to lecture us about healthcare, guns, and carbon, they forgot the actual point of civilized society, which is to let people live long enough to enjoy their freedoms? And what if all of this so-called compassion ends up just being another mask for control? You see, this is the philosophical rub. Progressives and technocrats, they love to say that they're protecting us from harm, but when their policies start killing more people than they save, do they ever reverse course? No, because it was never about safety. It was about obedience. And the philosopher Friedrich Hayek warned us about this. He said, central planning inevitably leads to tyranny. Not because the planners are evil, although some of them are, but because they have to be tyrannical to make their fantasy world work. You take good, normal people from your community, your neighbors, and you turn them into little Adolf Hitlers, because people will... Was it the Milgram experiment? They showed people will harm other people when given the slightest amount of authority. Have you ever been in an HOA that was loosely controlled, and then somebody becomes president, and all of a sudden overnight they're looking at your property and they're just, eyeballing it? They get the slightest amount of power, and they just feel the need to nitpick other people in their lives. What happened to Calvin Coolidge, right? Stephanie and I are working on our new children's book, which should be out soon. But our old children's book, Calvin the Coolest President, is still available at forlibertyshop.com. That's a good buy for you guys to get if you guys want to share a story with your little ones about how to be the boss without being bossy. That's the point of the story. How to be a boss without being bossy. I love this one. After Calvin was gone, many people forgot about him because he didn't try to tell everyone what to do all the time. He showed that good leaders stay out of people's way. There are still some people, you and me, who remember him, though, because of the important things he did and because he was just so cool. Calvin, the Coolest President. Available now at many fine Amazons or at forlibertyshop.com if you guys want to unlock the bonus content. That's a really good way to introduce young kids to the ideas of liberty and what made Calvin Coolidge very different from other presidents. Real Science Question says, yes, Milgram experiment was amazingly revealing. I knew. So my brain's cooking this morning. You know why? Because I just been skipping the whole sip the coffee throughout the show thing, and I just do that double shot of espresso. I just double bang that sucker. Get my poop over with, and then just get right in here and rock this show, baby. Europe has built a green cathedral, and now they're offering their citizens up on the altar. And what are we doing here in America? Well, we are at the crossroads. We still have a choice. We can reject the European model. We still have the constitutional muscle memory to say, no thanks, I'll keep my gun and my AC, and you can keep your climate lockdowns and UN lectures. But don't get comfortable yet, because the same ideology that's roasting people in Milan is alive and well in California, D.C., and yes, even your local city council. They want the same policies. They want to phase out gas cars. They try to do that in California. They want to make air conditioning equity regulated. I kid you not. They want to make 15-minute cities, heat taxes, carbon loyalty scores. They want you hot, broke, and apologizing for existing. So the next time somebody brings up European solutions to gun violence, ask them how many poor old ladies they plan to let cook to death in the name of Greta Thunberg. Because it's not about temperature. It's about freedom. And if you ask me, the right to be cool, comfortable, and armed sounds like the American dream. Coming up next, the Wall Street Journal wants you to play dead during a mass shooting. I'll show you what they got right, what they got dangerously wrong, and how to think like a sheepdog instead of a victim. Stick around.
It's been clear. When we fight for democracy, when we protect democracy, we got to fight fire with fire. We're not going to stand idly by, as Maya said. We're not going to let them revert to Jim Crow. And if you don't think they want to revert to Jim Crow, just look what they did. in the SAVE Act, which went back to took Jim Crow for the whole nation. By so making it hard, they said you need ID, and they made it so hard to show ID that probably half the people in America couldn't vote. We wouldn't let it pass. Democrats, they needed our vote. They went to court. Many of us, Durbin, myself, and others, were lead plaintiffs, and we beat them in court. But it shows why we need legislation. Because these guys are undoing everything in every way they can. They don't want poor people to vote. They don't want people of color to vote. They don't want Democrats to vote. They don't believe in democracy.
Yeah, black people, poor people wouldn't be able to vote if there was voter ID. Jesus. Good morning, pineapples. There are some bright spots on the horizon.
Actual expectations, they thought it would be maybe a little bit less than 2, and it was 3, a little bit more than 3. Consumer spending is up, business investment is way up, domestic manufacturing is way up, real disposable family income is up, and personal savings are up. Other than that, we're not doing so great. We have the hottest country, and I'll tell you, it's a great. We're having a lot of fun with it. At the same time, we dramatically slashed government spending for the second quarter in a row, down nearly 4%, which people were surprised at. We do a lot of cutting also. The private sector has boomed with nearly 600,000 jobs added, way above expectations, while we have reduced the federal workforce by 70,000 jobs. So these are private jobs that are coming back to our country. Federal jobs are being cut. Critics said that our tariffs would hurt the economy, but the data shows the exact opposite, and the exact opposite is happening. The U.S. Treasury has taken in $150 billion from tariffs, and we'll be adding about $200 billion next month, for totals that nobody's ever seen before, frankly. And foreign imports were down 30% in the second quarter, while the domestic auto production surged by a stunning 36%. How about that number, Dr. Oz? Right, that's good. That's good. We want to do that with your patients too. We'll have a very healthy. We're going to have a very healthy country.
The economy comes roaring back under Donald Trump. This is what I voted for. This is what I voted for. You love to see it, and you love to see the American auto manufacturers starting to perk up too.
Federal workforce by 70,000 jobs. So these are private jobs that are coming back to our country. Federal jobs are being cut. Critics said that our tariffs would hurt the economy, but the data shows the exact opposite, and the exact opposite is happening. The U.S. Treasury has taken in $150 billion from tariffs, and we'll be adding about $200 billion next month, for totals that nobody's ever seen before, frankly. And foreign imports were down 30% in the second quarter, while the domestic auto production surged by a stunning 36%. How about that number, Dr. Oz? Right, that's good. That's good. We want to do that with your patients too. We'll have a very healthy. We're going to have a very healthy country. At the same time, inflation continues to fall faster than expectations, and while we have reduced the federal.
Good morning, pineapples. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. Glad to have you here. It's nice to hear a president that's sounding positive and optimistic for once, unlike the gloom and doom from the Obama years. Things are actually being investigated as well, such as Nancy Pelosi.
Senator Hawley introduced legislation that would ban members of Congress from owning or trading individual stocks. It extends to the president and vice president. Are you in favor of that legislation?
Well, I like it conceptually. I don't know about it, but I like it conceptually. And, Nancy Pelosi became rich by having inside information. She made a fortune with her husband, and I think that's disgraceful. So in that sense, I'd like it, but I'd have to really see I study these things very carefully, and this just happened. So I'll take a look at it. But conceptually, I like it. And what I do think is Nancy Pelosi should be investigated, because she has the highest return of anybody practically, in the history of Wall Street, save a few. How did that happen? It happened by she knows exactly what's going to happen, what's going to be announced. She buys stock, and then the stock goes up after the announcement's made. And
It's true. Senator Josh Hawley was getting his bill passed. It used to be called the Pelosi Act, although I think they've changed it. And Trump got angry at him for trying to pass this bill, which he said he supported, and then came out in a Truth Social post saying that Josh Hawley is a second-tier senator and Nancy Pelosi loves this bill that he's trying to pass. But then Josh Hawley went on Jesse Waters and said that, no, we spoke, President Trump and I said he loves the bill. It was all very confusing last night. But this is how Nancy Pelosi reacted when asked about it.
Of Congress, not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that had been made over time. I'm not into it. My husband is, but it isn't anything to do with anything insider.
Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
But I wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the stop the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that had been made over time. I'm not into it. My husband is, but it isn't anything to do with anything insider.
It isn't anything to do with anything insider. Sure. So I don't quite understand it. So Josh Hawley was getting blasted by Donald Trump last night on a Truth Social post overpassing this bill that has Nancy Pelosi up in arms. I mean, Trump went so far as to call him a second-tier senator, which is so confusing because he bragged about getting him elected twice, and that's also very true, as all of you who are familiar with my history know that I know all too well. And Senator Josh Hawley here goes on Jesse Waters to explain everything, but at the end, I still feel confused. Maybe you can help me understand.
What Pelosi will say is that she doesn't manage any money. Her husband manages the money. Her husband makes the trades, and she has nothing to do with it. Does this bill have a loophole that she can exploit again?
Yeah, no, in fact, this bill will cover not only her, it will cover her husband. And the point is, we need to make it illegal for people to do this kind of thing. 86% of Americans look at stock trading by members of the Congress and they say, we ought to ban that. They can't believe it's not been banned already. Nobody should be up in Congress making a quick buck day trading when they should be doing the people's business. The president wants a stock trading ban. I want a stock trading ban. It's time to get it done.
All right. What Pelosi will say.
All right, well, it seems like they're on the same page then, but then why did Donald Trump post that really strange, very angry Truth Social post? And very uncharacteristic. No matter what you think of Josh Hawley, it didn't make any sense why it seemed that the president and Josh were on the same page, but then he gave him a thorough dressing down over on his Truth Social website. Love to hear about that. 104 people joining us live this morning on the Wake Up America show. It's nice to see you all over on Rumble, joining us live. If you haven't already, please do click the like button. And don't forget, guys, that we have a two-phase rocket available for you today. If you would like to ride the rocket, then you got to hit that bonus content goal. We have for you a 5-minute mini documentary that you will unlock if we raise $75 in Rumble Rants. And so far, we've raised $5 towards the $75 goal. But if we hit the $100, the second phase of the rocket will blast off, which is our new Choose Your Own Adventure segment. So if you guys want to choose your own adventure and choose which Defense Against the Dark Arts class you would like to see today, you will get to do that at the end of the show if we raise $100 either in Rumble Rants or in purchases at forlibertyshop.com. They call me a grifter. So I bought thegriftshop.com and I redirected it to my website, the For Liberty shop, guys. You can unlock that bonus content real quick if you go to forlibertyshop.com and buy an American flag champion jacket. Check out all of our collections, like our t-shirts, our Gadsden flag merch, drinkware, and of course, what I drank this morning, a double shot of espresso made with my Founding Flavors coffee. The number one seller in the shop, Jeffersonian Java. People do not regret buying the coffee. They love the coffee. See all of those reviews. 4.8 stars, 4.9, 4.8, 4.3, 5.0, 5.0, 5.0. People absolutely love the coffee at forlibertyshop.com. So head on over there and sign up for a monthly subscription to the coffee so you never run out, and help us to unlock that bonus content this morning. We are at $5 raised towards the $75 bonus content goal. And if we hit $100, you get to choose your own adventure. It's going to be fantastic. You don't want to miss it.
I was up in Grand Marais, Minnesota, and saw someone walk out of a grocery store, just happened to be walking in, saw her look at her receipt. She's looking down and she's just, no. That's how people are feeling. They're looking down at those going, no, I can't afford this.
I feel like Senator Amy Klobuchar just kind of made that up. I feel like that never happened. And all of the things that have never happened, that never happened the mosted. The coffee is legitimately good, says Kermode Barrett. Damn right it is. I've had a few products in my store that I was not convinced they were really up to snuff, and I took them out of that shop as quick as I could, man. I want to sell good products to people and have people appreciate that, and that, because you know that they'll come back, because word of mouth, because somebody says they don't like it, they don't go there, don't shop there, that spreads a lot faster. That word of mouth, negative word of mouth, spreads a lot faster than positive word of mouth. It's true. Jimmy Joe Patty says, I just brewed up half a pot of Revere's Revolutionary Roast. There you go, brother. You got to get that stuff on a timeline. Get every 2 weeks, every 1 month, every 2 months or 3 months, have it delivered right to your door. All right, next topic, guys. Let's get deadly serious here for just a moment, right? The Wall Street Journal put out a piece yesterday that made my eyebrow do the full libertarian arch right there. They call it active shooter training. What to do? Credit where it's due. The article offers some good advice, especially for folks who are trapped in blue cities where self-defense is practically criminalized. This particular event took place in New York City, where carrying a gun is about as legal as selling raw milk or thinking for yourself. But so most of what they give you in this Wall Street Journal article is about being unarmed. And fair enough, if you're in an office tower in Manhattan, odds are you're not packing. So the advice the Wall Street Journal gives is this: run, hide, and fight. That's the big three. All right, run if you can, hide if you can't run, and then fight only as a last resort. I mean, these are sound principles for me to poop on. For victims, right? But let's talk about what they don't say, right? Because buried between the lines of play dead and lock the door with a belt is the chilling message of the modern state. We can't protect you, and we don't want you really to protect yourself. See, what the Journal doesn't want to talk about, and what most media won't touch, is the armed civilian, the sheepdog in the community, the person who trains, carries, and refuses to be a statistic. It's the guy at church who brings the gun to church so that when the crazed gunman drives his truck into the church on an attempt to do a mass killing spree and all the Christian parishioners there, the sheepdog stands up and blows him away. It's the Robbie Theraman, if you will, of the community. They don't want the Robbie Theramans there in the Manhattan buildings. You know, he's got a limp, but he more than makes up for it with, stone cold packing. Oh, you took his gun away from him. Oh, what about second gun? Get his gun. What about third and fourth gun? Second breakfast. Some of you haven't even had first breakfast, right? So let's break this down into two battle plans. Part one, what to do if you're unarmed. This is where most New Yorkers, Californians, federal workers, right, know your exits. Every time you enter a building, clock the nearest exit. It doesn't take much time at all. If you're in a restaurant, what I like to do is to not have my back facing the door. I always want to be facing the door so I can see who's coming. I got a little baby, I got a wife, and so I'm going to be looking out for them and thinking, how am I going to get them out that door? Right? If you hear shots, gunshots, don't freeze. That's the number one mistake. The human brain takes up to 10 seconds to even process that it's real. Don't waste these seconds. Don't pull out your phone to record. You're not an influencer. You're a target. Find hard cover, not concealment. A tablecloth is not going to stop bullets. A concrete pillar might. Use what's around you. Fire extinguishers make great visual obstructions, and bonus, they can also be used as a weapon. But if you have to fight, fight dirty. Throw objects, gouge eyes, bite ears. There are no rules in hell. This is where I'm going to channel my H.L. Mencken. Civilization is a thin veneer over primal truth. Violence doesn't care about your HR handbook. Now, here's part two of this segment. What to do if you are armed. Now you're talking, all right? You're trained. You're Robbie Thurman. You're carrying daily. You know the weight of responsibility. First rule, get off the X, right? Don't stand in the kill zone, right? Move, all right? So you're armed. You're dangerous. You're only going to have to stick maybe when you're firing so that you're not firing while you're moving so that you can really draw a bead. But for the most part, right, get off the line, right? We teach this in karate class or even in all boxers, all fighting arts will teach you that if you're doing striking or if you're and it applies to gunfighting, is that if somebody's trying to draw a bead on you, step horizontally. If any of you play video games, you might be familiar with the concept of strafing. This is really wise and important because a simple strafe, whoosh, stepping to the side is enough to save your life. Not forward, not back, to the side, to the left, right? Remember your Beyonce, right? And second, draw only when you have visual confirmation and intent. Do not be the guy who shoots at shadows or gets himself mistaken for the bad guy, right? Because that is a dangerous situation to be in where people don't know there's an active shooter. You're trying to defend yourself. People hear that there's an active shooter. They come around the corner. They see just you with a gun. They think you're the active shooter. And all of a sudden they realize later, as they're pulling the bodies out, that you were one of the good guys, right? Third rule is do not chase. You are not SWAT. Your job is to protect lives, including your own. If the shooter flees, let the trained responders handle the rest, okay? Don't chase him down like you're John Wick or something, right? Fourth, secure the scene after the threat is neutralized. Holster your gun if it's safe. Put your hands up when police arrive. And say nothing, but if you're a licensed concealed carrier, say so. I've secured the threat. Then shut your mouth and then lawyer up, baby. Because they'll try and make you out to be the bad guy. They'll try and ruin your life because you have the audacity to defend yourself against someone. A good lawyer will get you free, but the biggest thing you can do at that point is to shut your stinking hole. Shut your mouth. I pulled some tactical notes from some real-world experts. I don't know if anybody here watches ASP, Active Self-Protection with John Correa, one of my favorites. He says that the average response window that you have to respond to a shooter or a situation where you need to defend yourself, if you have a gun, is 15 seconds. That's it. Count 15 seconds right now. Let's do it. 15 seconds. What do you guys say? You want to count 15 seconds here and see what the thing is? Let me pull up my alarm or my stopwatch. Ready and go. Shooter's in the building. You have visual confirmation. He sees you. You see him. You're going to draw. He draws his gun. He's aiming at you. You're aiming at him. Boom, 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 boom. Return fire. And 15 seconds right there. That's all that it was. The whole incident just unfolded in that period of time that I was describing it for you. Colonel Jeff Cooper, he taught condition yellow. Stay relaxed, but aware. Keep your head on a swivel. Know what normal looks like. so that you can spot abnormal fast. All right, Masad Ayub, he teaches that in court, what matters is what a reasonable person would do. So train, document your training, and act in a way that a jury can understand. It's not Call of Duty, right? This isn't real life. But guess what? Armed citizens do stop mass shootings. You just don't hear about it. In 2022, a 22-year-old legally armed man named Elijah Dicken stopped a mass shooter in Indiana with a pistol at 40 yards. He fired 10 rounds, hit 8 of them, and saved countless lives. Now, for those of you who have ever shot a pistol and who have some sense of distance, 40 yards with a pistol and 8 out of 10 shots hit is a damn good shot. It's hard to hit something with a pistol at 40 yards. He wasn't a cop. He wasn't a Navy SEAL. He was just a young man with a spine of steel and a holster. And in the words of Ayn Rand, a man who values his life and freedom will never submit to force. So this is what it's all about. It's not just tactics. It's also philosophy, because you either believe that the state should monopolize violence or you believe in self-ownership. You either wait to be saved or you be prepared to act. In the ancient Roman Republic, Cicero wrote that natural law gives us the right to defend ourselves with whatever force is necessary. And even today, despite our modernity and our hashtags and our Ivy League overlords, that truth still remains. When danger strikes, you are your own first responder. And let me tell you something, guys. I would rather live in a country where the average man can own a Glock and knows how to use it than one where he's told to cower behind a printer while waiting for some DEI-trained officer to show up 40 minutes late. Run, hide, and fight is what the Wall Street Journal says. How about this? Train, carry, and win. I like that a lot better. All right, coming up after the break, Devin Erickson spoke to me earlier this morning about the scariest thing in the world these days is the male gaze. So the male gaze with Devin Erickson when we get back. Somebody just bought a box of coffee or something, it looks like. We now raised over $30 towards the $75 bonus content goal, guys. Guess what that means? That means that once we hit $75, you'll unlock the mini documentary. If we hit $100 raised on today's show, then you guys will get to see the Choose Your Own Adventure Defense Against the Dark Arts class, where you get to decide what you see at the end of the show. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Here at Alligator Alcatraz, the fence keeps them in. But slip up, and you're on my plate.
Looks like breakfast is making a run for it. We got 3 hot meals trying to check out early from Alligator Alcatraz.
They can splash, they can sprint, but there's no escaping Alligator Alcatraz. Caught 2.
The third?
Huh. The swamp's got its own way of catching runaways.
Mama was wrong. Gators don't need toothbrushes. Just an honest job making America great again.
Joining us now live on the show is our guest. Good morning, Devin. Nice to see you, sir.
And thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Grateful to have you here, Devin. So the clip that I played a little bit earlier with the lovely redhead with glorious breasticles glistening in the sun was talking about how upset she was that men weren't approaching her in public. And mind you, she's in New York City where everybody's trying to get some. And she was desperate for what I think you probably remember, maybe 10, 15 years ago, catcalling during the Me Too period. We were all warned about catcalling. She's desperate for a catcall. Now, one man posted that video and said that this has given a lot of men who are cowards the excuse that they have always needed not to approach women, and then they can blame it on women. But you kind of like slapped him down and said that it's something else. I mean, you were really, really harsh about it. So explain to our audience why you think it's not just that men are cowards.
Well, it's so many people just refuse to think about human beings in terms of animal behavior, in terms of evolution. So they come up with these sort of ridiculous ideas about how human beings are supposed to work. You know, oh, you're too afraid to approach. Well, if something is part of the natural life cycle of an animal, the animal isn't going to be afraid to do it. You know, cats are not afraid to chase the little feather toy on the end of a string. It's natural behavior for them. So if you're saying, oh, human mating requires great courage, then it just kind of makes me scratch my head, because how did we get previous generations? And how did the guys who were afraid to approach ever have offspring? So obviously something is being missed here. And I think that we've moved very far away from the circumstances of our evolution, and most of the problems we experience in response to the modern world are we've created an environment that we weren't evolved for. So if you look at mating rituals, they're very seriously broken. And this is how you get what you call a fertility crisis. You know, women are having less children throughout their lifetimes. We're at a rate of population replacement that is below what we would need to maintain our current levels of population. And this can't be tied down to any one sort of social phenomenon, because it's present throughout the developed world. And
yeah, it's global.
Yeah. It's global. It's everywhere but the third world, basically, everywhere where we have a modern economy. And so it's pretty obvious that this is tied to a modern economy. Well, one of the things I did was I pointed out that, hey, you know, human mating relationships are initiated by the female. The way this naturally works is that women covertly signal availability. And then men come and overtly approach. And once you get this sort of breakdown in the sex roles, the parts of the mating dance that are culturally passed on, once we get culturally programmed against those, people don't know what to do. And this impacts the fertility crisis, because what happens is that I did a deep dive into some of the data on this, and it seems that once people get married in the modern era, they're having children at the same rate that they did before we had a fertility crisis. The impact is entirely that they're taking longer and longer to pair off and get married. And part of this, not all of it, part of it is economic, but part of it is that with the diminution of the difference between male and female roles, a lot of the mating rituals that people use to find mates have been disrupted.
This is all good stuff. And we're talking about a global phenomenon here. So, and you say that there are multiple reasons. This isn't like a singular answer for why we're having the birth rate fall.
Well, they all stem from a single reason. Okay,
but I had a particularly angry lady in my comments yesterday when I posted the statistics showing the global fertility crisis. And I had pulled the chart from Elon Musk and then went and verified it, and it's true. But one of the things that I pointed out was the availability of the birth control pill, which was quite offensive to the ladies in the comments, but particularly one female economist friend of mine. She was pointing at what she believes to be the problem, which is that women are being educated more and therefore they have more choice like they don't have in the third world. And therefore fertility rates are falling because women have more freedom. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think that she needs to go back and read Simone de Beauvoir, who gave the whole game away in the 70s. You know, one of the archpriests of feminism went full mask off and said this: She said, women should not be allowed to be housewives and mothers, because if they are, too many of them will make that choice. And this was, this was before feminism was mainstream, so they kind of went full mask off with some of their opinions there. And so what's happening is not that women have choice. What's happening is that women have been propagandized. They are being influenced. We have reached this point where women are taught throughout their childhoods and early adulthood that every part of women's natural role is demeaning and beneath them and shameful, and that men are somehow having all the fun, tarring roofs or working in a cubicle, and that what women really need to do is go and get a career. Well, women are pretty vulnerable to the influence of a crowd. A popular consensus or the illusion of a popular consensus manufactured with social media. So several generations ago, a woman, a teenager, a 16-year-old girl is going to have this idea about her life. Well, I'm going to get married and I'm going to have a couple of children and other things will happen, but that's what I'm going to do. And then when I was young, women had this idea, well, I'm going to get married and have children, and I'm also going to have a job somewhere in there. And now women have this idea, okay, well, I'm going to go have a career, and then maybe someday I'll have some kids. So this idea that this is happening because women are free. Women have always been free. They've just been influenced to make different choices now than they have back then.
Now, Devin, I don't want to let the men entirely off the hook, because there has to be some accountability and responsibility for what men allow, because much of the behavior that goes on is because men allow it. As a matter of fact, I had an authoritarian libertarian debate, and the authoritarian's argument was against libertarianism was simply that, that no one really has rights, because rights are only what can be protected through force. And therefore, rights are the only rights that are allowed are the ones that powerful men who decide what rights are allowed are the only rights that people can actually enjoy. Now, that's one way of looking at this one. But then I don't want to let men off the hook too much, Devin, in the sense of the simp factor and of these weak males, because I can say, and I know that this is facile to like the underlying, this is the tip of the iceberg, right? Not the iceberg itself. But I do think that there is an element of males that you might call them soy boys or what have you. These are heterosexual males that are not following they're not the cat chasing the toy. They're not doing the behaviors that they should be doing. They're glued to their screen and video games and pornography and marijuana. And as a libertarian, those things should absolutely be legal for adults 18 and age and over consenting. But at the end of the day, I've had so many guy friends, Devin. I can't tell you how many I've lost. And the guy friends that I have lost universally were the men that had no game, and did blame women and say, oh, well, now I don't approach women because now you hashtag me too, et cetera. And they're all girl bosses and they're annoying and they're covered in tattoos like this chick from this original video. And they are weaklings, Devin. They are men who unceasingly blame women for the problems of their own creation. They ain't got the balls to stand up to a woman like that and stare right in her chest and look right in her face and say, hey, baby, where are you going? What are you doing tonight? Like, that is a phenomenon. It is a real thing, Devin. How do you answer that?
Well, I think that you will never solve this problem if you think of it as weakness. It is not weakness, it is ignorance. These men think that what is attractive is compliance to what women say they want. So when women say, don't approach me in the park, don't approach me in the dark, don't approach me here or there, don't approach me anywhere. They believe that they are being told the straight dope. You know, men are also seeing the massive propaganda, the illusion of consensus that is talking women out of women's roles. So these guys, the reason that they are mad at women is they go and they go to women, they listen to what the women say, and they comply. And that compliance is not sexy. And they are essentially angry at women for being as women are, not as they imagine women are supposed to be. They act the role of the good progressive male, and then they get resentful that this doesn't get them sex, like it was this transactional thing. And then they wander around resentful at women, and eventually they become these sort of sleazy left-wing male rapist types, where they will sort of sleaze up to women in their social circle and get them alone and try to strong arm them.
They call them
because
sneaky fuckers.
Yeah. They were taught wrong
I'm a
on
feminist.
purpose. They were taught wrong on purpose. And now they're resentful that what they were told to do doesn't work. And what actually does work, they refuse to do because they've been told that it's bad. So we have a system of media that has been for a long time proselytizing against not only natural male and female behavior, but against a public awareness of natural male and female behavior. So you have to understand these guys as being deluded and misled rather than weak. They're not afraid to do what they know they should do. They don't know what to do, and when they become aware of it, they're afraid to do it, not because it's hard, but they've been told that it's evil. What they're afraid of is disapprobation and shame and punishment and the guilt they will feel for being masculine. They're not afraid just of rejection. They're afraid of being shunned by their entire social group. Yeah, this fear is very real.
You wrote on July 26th that evolutionary psychology is usually more of an intellectual tool than a robust field of study. It's useful, but it contains a dangerous trap. Devin, my previous guest and I were talking a little bit about evolutionary psychology in the context of understanding human behavior, and specifically people who were accusing Sydney Sweeney of being a Nazi because her initials are SS, and
because she's white.
And she's white, and
because
she's beautiful.
She's white. That's all it is. They hate white people.
Right. So what's the evolutionary psychology there? Is that just simply they're trying to, destroy that which is beautiful, that which is out competing them genetically, or?
Well, wokeness is essentially communism, and communism is based on envy. Someone solved communism on social media a few years ago when he said that, communism is when ugly mutant freaks make it illegal to be beautiful and successful, harass everyone. It's just an attempt to flip the table by people who have a poor hand of cards.
Yeah, they are over in the chat. Our friend L-Dub says they are trying to queer what is normal. Yeah, because it's something that appeals to their true enemy, though. Men like yourself and myself, Devin, the quintessential white male with agency.
Yeah, well, there was a sea change in Marxism sort of starting in the mid to late 20th century. And the way Marxism was during the Russian Revolution is, okay, this economic experiment hasn't been tried yet. And, we want to empower the workers of the world and put them in charge of the government and centrally manage everything for their benefit. And you could get the working class to buy into this in 1912 because a lot of this economic experiment hadn't been run yet. So, communism was always a phenomenon of academia, but they could recruit the working class to be their soldiers at this time because people really didn't know that communism doesn't work. But as it emerged that communism doesn't work, the working class started to say, oh, okay, well, what we actually want is capitalism with trade unions, because that's what actually gets us paid, and that's what actually makes our money able to buy anything. So communism started to lose support among the people it claimed were the point all along, the working class. But of course, the real constituency is academia, and the real point is power. So they needed new foot soldiers. And the new foot soldiers they selected were misfits, were the people who just don't fit in society, who just can't find anything useful to do with themselves, who have a host of mental illnesses.
No, I'm sorry, Devin, that's the libertarians. I'm sorry. That's the communist meeting is next door.
Why not both?
He says as a proud libertarian, but not card carrying. Devin, this is your fascinating insights, and you don't get these kinds of discussions anywhere else. I highly recommend that people follow you over on X. It's at Devin_Erickson. Tell us about your triumph, your book, Theft of Fire, coming out on audiobook, but there's a caveat.
Well, not on Audible, because Audible has a business model that involves not paying authors. Seriously, I ran the numbers. I would be paid about between 40 and 27 cents per sale.
Oh, God. Geez, you're better off going to Amazon.com and putting it out there yourself. Devin, it's a fantastic thing to have more science fiction authors out there who are writing books that have an impact, because some of my biggest, the biggest contributions to my overall philosophy came from author Robert Heinlein. I think science fiction with Star Trek and even Star Wars to some extent is a great way to reach into people's psyches and bring up conversations about republics and empires, and to have conversations about duty and responsibility in a way that sort of disarms people from your typical Cato Institute white paper in your face. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's cultural and political conversations are won by people who capture the imagination, not people who massage statistics into the shape that they want. And the way I put it is that science fiction is really kind of a technology for talking about tech before it happens. It's a way that we can anticipate the future and decide how we feel about it before the things that are going to be invented actually come along. And that's pretty important, because if you think about the whole 20th century, if you think about everything that was invented in the 20th century, name 5 things that didn't happen first in science fiction.
Great point. I mean,
it's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, trying to think.
It's tricky.
Rockets and things like that. But they were invented.
And the way that I sort of put the importance of this is, I'm pretty sure that Elon Musk didn't grow up reading Little House on the Prairie.
If he'd done that, he would have ended up here in Missouri with me, with my little farmhouse, my little redheaded baby girl. Devin, is there anything else that you want to share with our audience before we let you go today, sir?
The sequel to Theft of Fire is coming out soon, and the audiobook is coming out even sooner. So if you like some good science fiction that is not woke and gives you that feeling that you had reading science fiction in the 80s, check that out.
Devin, I think you're a brilliant guy. I love following you on X. I think people need to get a copy of your book. I see several people in the Rumble chat this morning said that they already did. They loved your book. So congratulations on that. It's a hell of a triumph to be able to create works of art like that in the modern era when everybody's scrolling through TikTok and only have 7-second attention spans. We wish you and your family the best, and we hope you'll come back and join us again real soon. Thank you for being so generous with your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Here at Alligator Alcatraz, the fence keeps them in. But slip up, and you're on my plate.
Looks like breakfast is making a run for it. We got 3 hot meals trying to check out early from Alligator Alcatraz.
They can splash, they can sprint, but there's no escaping Alligator Alcatraz. Caught 2.
The third?
The swamp's got its own way of catching runaways.
Mama was wrong. Gators don't need toothbrushes. Just an honest job making America great again.
Patriots, listen up. The sun's out, the shades are on, and the Gulf of America is wide open for business. This summer, don't show up to the beach looking like a landlocked liberal. Gear up with the Gulf of America collection. Towels, tumblers, shirts, hats, fanny packs, because nothing says freedom like cannonballing into liberty with style. Whether you're grilling burgers, catching waves, or just flexing on social media, do it draped in stars, stripes, and pure American greatness. The Gulf of America isn't just a place, it's a lifestyle. Hit forlibertyshop.com and roll into summer like the Founding Fathers just handed you the keys to the coast. Beaches, BBQs, and bald eagles approved. You should too. Head over to forlibertyshop.com and get your Gulf of America gear. Summer is coming fast. That's forlibertyshop.com. Imagine bringing George Washington back to life. Just to explain that in 2025, men can get pregnant, waving an American flag might offend someone, and our government is $34 trillion in debt. But that's not all, George. We have drag queen story hour for toddlers. Pronouns are mandatory. And Harvard can't define woman. Oh. And we send billions to Ukraine but can't fix potholes in Ohio. You know, just normal modern empire stuff. I'm sure he'd be totally cool with it. Right after he finishes reloading. He didn't cross the Delaware for this nonsense, but you can carry on the fight with gear that would have made King George cry. Shop bold, shop free, shop forlibertyshop.com. Legend has it, back in 1773, a band of angry, overtaxed patriots stormed a British ship, found the king's favorite tea, and said, "This would taste better without the tyranny." Then they tossed it overboard. Fast forward to today. That revolutionary spirit lives on in Boston Harbor Black, the boldest brew in the For Libert tea lineup. It's dark, it's smooth, it's unapologetically American, just like the folks who drink it. Whether you're sweetening it up on the front porch or drinking it straight like a Minuteman before battle, this isn't tea for royalty, it's tea for rebels.
Hey guys, we just unlocked that bonus content, which means you get to watch it before Daniella Pentsak comes up and joins us. I didn't want to forget, I just heard from my buddy Remzo Martinez. Many of you have seen him on the Wake Up America show. He's sponsoring the Wake Up America show with the best ad that we've ever had, which is me giving you the opportunity to make a lot of money in a good paying job. Stephanie was shocked when I told her how much people who apply at campaignjobsnow.com/apply, how much those people make from working in politics. If you are looking to get into the fight for liberty and get paid doing it, it's time to get off the sidelines and visit campaignjobsnow.com. This is the #1 site connecting patriots like you with real political jobs that make a difference. So whether you're fresh out of college, a seasoned vet of the ground game, or just sick of sitting behind a desk while the country burns, there is a place for you. We're talking door knockers, digital warriors, fundraisers, field operations, the whole red-blooded machine. Conservative campaigns across the country are hiring right now. Don't wait for someone else to save the country. Join the fight yourself. Head to campaignjobsnow.com/apply. That's campaignjobsnow.com/apply and start working for what you believe in. They told, Remzo contacted me. He said that, Austin, a whole bunch of people have applied, said they heard from you in the Wake Up America show. So do me a favor, if you do end up applying for campaignjobsnow.com, let them know that Austin Petersen and the Wake Up America show sent you. Now enjoy the bonus content that you just unlocked. We've hit the $75 goal. Once we hit 100, if we unlock phase 2, then it's choose your own adventure. Anything goes. You, me, and the devil makes 3. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Abroad, or The New Pilgrim's Progress, by Mark Twain. Mark Twain's travel log from the Holy Land. At just 31, Mark Twain sailed to Europe and the Holy Land on the steamship Quaker City, an excursion that resulted in his first great literary success, The Innocents Abroad, or The New Pilgrim's Progress. Published in 1869, it remains one of the world's great travel narratives. In Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre, Twain was shown the tomb of Adam. How touching it was here in a land of strangers, far away from home, and friends and all who care for me, thus to discover the grave of a blood relative, he wrote of the site. True, a distant relation, but still a relation. This recognition of kinship stirred Twain to its profoundest depths. Overcome by emotion, he leaned upon a pillar and burst into tears. We don't ordinarily think of Mark Twain as a champion of Reagan-era family values, but in his way, he was. As touching as this might be, it was not quite accurate for Twain to have said he was in a land of strangers. By the time he and his fellow travelers got to Jerusalem, he had been in their company for more than 4 months and knew them about as well as he cared to. His experience of traveling with these other Americans was not altogether favorable. There's reason to suspect, in fact, their time together informed the anti-imperialism with which Twain would in later years be associated. The group's itinerary took them to Spain, France, Italy, and Greece before they arrived in Palestine, where what they knew as the Holy Land was located. Twain was not overly impressed with the natives of any of the countries the Quaker City pilgrims visited. The people of those foreign countries are very, very ignorant, he reported. Even the French were ignorant. In Paris, they just simply opened their eyes and stared when we spoke to them in French. We never did succeed in making those idiots understand their own language. At least the French lived in real cities, which could not be said for the Palestinians. The Quaker City vacationers saw much of what we know as Israel, then part of the Ottoman Empire, by horseback. Unlike the more pious travel writers of his day, Twain refused to paint Palestine or its people in glowing terms. It was a hopeless, dreary, heartbroken land, void of resources, and wherever he and the other tourists went, they found themselves mobbed by the usual assemblage of squalid humanity clamoring for money. Some of the men seemed fit, but all the women looked worn and sad and distressed with hunger. The little children were in a pitiable condition. They all had sore eyes and were otherwise afflicted in various ways. Twain made no distinctions among people. Jerusalem is composed of Muslims, Jews, Greeks, Latins, Armenians, Syrians, Copts, Abyssinians, Greek Catholics, and a handful of Protestants. And the languages spoken by them are altogether too numerous to mention. All the races and colors and tongues of the earth must be represented among the 14,000 souls that dwell in Jerusalem. Rags, wretchedness, poverty, and dirt are everywhere. Lepers, cripples, the blind, and the idiotic assail you on every hand. While Twain refused to prettify the Holy Land and had no patience with the preening piety of his fellow travelers, the experience moved him to an unexpected realization. Christ knew how to preach to these simple, superstitious, disease-tortured creatures. He healed the sick. Given the conditions in which these sad people eked out an existence, Twain expressed amazement that so many figures from the New Testament seem to have lived in well-maintained chapels, churches, and shrines of one kind or another. At Nazareth, he marveled at the Virgin Mary's living quarters, where she and Joseph watched the infant Savior play with Hebrew toys 1800 years ago, all under one roof and all clean, spacious, comfortable grottos. In Bethlehem, he found the grotto at the Church of the Nativity to be tricked out in the usual tasteless style, but was struck nonetheless to be where the very first Merry Christmas was uttered. Twain regarded these and other sites important to Christians with mock solemnity. At the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, he was shown a niche that was said to have contained at one time a piece of the true cross, discovered centuries before the Quaker City vacationers arrived. Their tour guides say it was stolen away a long time ago by priests of another sect, Twain wrote. That seems like a hard statement to make, but we know very well that it was stolen because we have seen it ourselves in several of the cathedrals of Italy and France. The travelers visited the chapel of St. Helena, also at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where the cross, the nails, and the crown of thorns had been discovered. These, alas, had also disappeared, stolen presumably. Priests of all denominations can visit this sacred grotto to weep and pray and worship the gentle Redeemer, Twain noted. Two different congregations are not allowed to enter at the same time, however, because they always fight. When one stands on the hill of Calvary, where the Savior was crucified, Twain wrote, one finds it all he can do to keep it strictly before his mind that Christ was not crucified in a Catholic church. Christianity would be wonderful, Twain suggested, if it weren't for Christians. His opinion of his fellow travelers was not much better than those of the pitiable inhabitants of the Holy Land. He thought they were stuffy and hypocritical. One shipmate was a clergyman, pompous as only a 19th century New England clergyman could be. This man of the cloth, Twain said, looks like he is waiting for a vacancy in the Trinity. Twain was by no means a spoilsport, party pooper, or a killjoy on the excursion. He played cards with the others, he played shuffleboard, he danced and drank. But he found most of them almost insufferable. Taken together, they constituted a strange menagerie of ignorance, imbecility, bigotry, and dotage, making it irresistible for him to record how that curious company conducted themselves in foreign lands. They could be so mean and so vicious and so outrageous in every way that this accomplished swearer could not collect the terms to express it in any less than 16 or 17 languages, he told a friend. That last vituperation is found in Twain's private letters, not in The Innocents Abroad, but even there, in an almost offhand way, he tells how these God-fearing people weep at sites sacred to their faith, then routinely pillage them of relics as souvenirs. Twain would see this played out on a vastly larger scale in years to come. He would emerge in the period of the Spanish-American War as an outspoken anti-imperialist, denouncing efforts to uplift less fortunate peoples while imprisoning and killing them, annexing their lands and plundering them of their resources. On the Quaker City trip, Twain had seen this stately matron named Christendom, as he would put it in the New York Herald, for what she was. Of course, there wasn't much for this stately matron to exploit in Palestine when Twain was there, though there would be in years to come. It would be instructive to know what Twain would make of President Donald Trump's wishes to turn Gaza into a combination Las Vegas and Disneyland for the profit of American investors. I suspect he would not approve. He had seen up close and personal how Americans too often conduct themselves overseas and did not find the spectacle edifying. Trump's favorite predecessor, incidentally, is President William McKinley, Commander-in-Chief during the Spanish-American War. Of course, Twain himself profited handsomely from the book he wrote based on his Quaker City adventures. He offered no apologies for this. The Innocents Abroad was a bestseller, putting the bachelor in a position to take a bride. "I want a good wife," he told a shipmate. "I want a couple of them, if they are particularly good." The prospective family man discussed the matter with another passenger, an amiable young fellow from Elmira, New York. This was Charlie Langdon, the son of a well-established New England coal baron. Langdon showed Twain a miniature portrait of his sister, Olivia. Twain was smitten. Back on terra firma, a meeting was arranged. "I'll harass that girl, and harass her till she'll have to say yes," he told another friend. In time, she did. It was a long and happy marriage, and she accompanied him on the worldwide lecture tour that he wrote about years later in Following the Equator. Twain, with all his opinions, could not have been the easiest traveling companion, but he was an entertaining and, as future generations can see, perceptive one.
tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniella Pentsak. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist?
I really wasn't going to weigh in on this, but here we go. It is so difficult to grow up as a person of color, specifically a woman, and view yourself as beautiful in any sense of the word growing up in this country. I remember growing up in a predominantly white community, wishing myself out of this body, out of this culture, take my name, if it meant that I could wake up blonde-haired and blue-eyed, never having to explain who I am or worry about being accepted. That is why this American Eagle ad with Sydney Sweeney is especially off-putting. There's a lot of rhetoric right now online about the political ideologies that this represents, and I don't discount that, but for me, I can't help but think about the 13-year-old brown girl who gets all her denim at American Eagle, who already struggles to see her beauty and worth in a world that continues to value white, Eurocentric beauty standards, which I naively thought by this point we would have moved the needle on. And this girl is now wishing she too could wake up with blonde hair and blue eyes. It took me so long, too long in my life to look in the mirror and see beauty. And I hate that continues to be a shared experience for young brown girls in this country.
Yeah, so you're not doing a good job at getting rid of the fact that this is all a lot of jealousy aimed at Sydney Sweeney. Good morning, Pineapples. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. Hers Mommy says, maybe she should see a good therapist. Great comment over there in the chat. Nice to see you, Hers. It's been a while. Sydney Sweeney hurts my feelings. Yes, excellent. Hey, guys, you did it. We unlocked the bonus content. Yeah, the bonus content. You know, the one whenever we raise $75 on the show, you unlock the mini documentary. Well, we did that. Amazing. And now we have phase 2 of the bonus content, and you've just unlocked it. It's my new segment. We call it Defense Against the Dark Arts class, where you get to decide which evil of socialism that you get to learn out that day as part of your, and how to defend against it in your Defense Against the Dark Arts class. I will be, as the token millennial, your Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, because millennials only know 2 things, Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. Now, I know both. The leftists tend to like the Harry Potter, well, until J.K. Rowling become a TERF. Austin, shut up. It's time to talk to another beautiful blonde woman about what it's like being what everybody wants to be. She's got great genes. Her name, she's the host of Culturama, and she's joining us live right now. Good morning, Daniella. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Austin. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
The reason why this story is sticking, at least in my mind, just from a technical standpoint, is because everybody's talking about it. They're going to look back at this part of history, Daniella, and a girl who was wearing denim with a nice jugs is going to be in history books. This story has staying power. Why?
Well, it has staying power, I think, for multiple reasons. For one, it is provocative. The commercial is more or less provocative if you watch it, and it invokes, provocative feelings. But additionally, and the point that you're touching upon is, of course, the political element. And that is, I think, the reemergence of what was once considered traditional American beauty, I suppose. And that's upsetting a lot of people. And it's a quite interesting phenomenon to witness.
Yeah, it's extremely interesting phenomenon to experience. I mean, obviously there's the prurient interests in this one, the people who are just looking at this because it involves beautiful women. But there's something about the female psyche. You heard the clip that I played before this, that there's these strong feelings of inadequacy that women have. And which is common, normal conversation we've had in this country. But now it's sort of like weaponized because of the race of the person that is involved. Talk to that.
Yeah, there's always going to be like intersexual competition. And of course that within the female, species or whatever you want to call it. And that obviously that's going to happen between different ethnicities, like it happens between people of different weights. That part isn't surprising, and you can understand how this lady, she probably feels inadequate when she watches that commercial. And like you had mentioned, she's probably jealous. And that frankly all it boils down to. But I think there's also a deeper element to this, and that's what I talked about on my show before. But that is that I think it goes deeper to, once again, the objectification of what we consider as beautiful. And like I had said, it was once considered traditionally beautiful to have, features of what Sydney Sweeney has: blonde hair, blue eyes. It's invoked in the commercial. And a lot of people, particularly leftists, within a leftist class, don't like that. And they're trying to dismantle what was once considered beautiful. We have seen that happen within advertising in the past. And I think they're just getting a little upset now that we are reinvoking that traditional element of beauty. And it does invoke a sense of traditionalism. And I think that's what upsets them about it, is that we're hearkening to this like ideal form universally, almost, if you can think about it. If you think about it, like other cultures also seem to prefer lighter features, for example, or blue eyes, lighter hair. And they don't like that. They don't like that. Like, you could almost claim, I don't think it's the objective form of beauty, but what they think the traditional form of beauty may be considered the objective form of beauty. Okay, so you've definitely gone and done a deep dive on this one on your show, Culturama, which is Tuesdays and Thursday nights, 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time, right here on Rumble at rumble.com/Culturama. That's rumble.com/Culturama.
The president of the United States, apparently, the White House put out a statement on this one here, talking about the backlash to Sydney Sweeney. This White House seems keenly aware, or I guess we could call them very, very online. What do we call it? Terminally online. Yes. But more than any White House before, this White House seems to kind of get the cultural fight, the battle that we're engaged in. Do they not?
Yeah, I would say they are fairly aware, as much as they can be, and some people are saying, like, trying to conflate it with the administration as well, saying that, hey, look, because President Donald Trump is in, and people have basically, voiced their opinions of the voting polls, saying like this is a major cultural shift that's happening. People are trying to invoke once again that aspect of traditionalism, of conservatism, or conservatism, whatever you want to call it. But they want those elements of traditional Americana back, and I think that actually is partially true, because we lost a lot of that with previous advertising. We've talked about on your show before, Austin, with like leftist advertising for quite a while now, especially post-COVID, post-2020. We've seen like a rise in that, and I think people have just been are sick of it. They're sick of seeing transgender individuals in their messaging. They're sick of seeing, unfortunately to say, but obese black ladies sell athletic gear when they want to see something that perhaps exhibits that lifestyle more. For example, athletic gear. They want to refer back to the norms of what they had clung to in the past, and some of that can be reflected in the current administration. That's what they want, and it's like back to nationalism.
It looks like though the tide is starting to turn, because I saw Dunkin' Donuts was kind of getting into this from the other side of things. All the gay conservative accounts that I follow, or we're all posting this brief ad I'll play here.
Look, I didn't ask to be the king of summer. It just kind of happened. This tan, genetics. I just got my color analysis back. Guess what? Golden summer, literally.
There it is, Daniela. It's white supremacy. He's a white guy. He's talking about good genes. He's talking about his, where his color comes from. I mean, that's Dunkin' Donuts. So, I mean, people aren't screwing around anymore, Daniela.
No, it's that commercial was quite fascinating. It's almost like they're aware of the white boy summer motif. It's really interesting and odd, actually. They would go that angle. I think it's, at the end of the day, companies just want to make money. I think they know what will get people talking, and maybe they did see like some of the quote unquote success that came from I'm unaware if this ad came after. Yeah, I don't know if this came right after or how that worked, but I'm assuming there's some connection there, and they're like aware of the response that it got and the reactions that it got, and it got eyeballs to the company and to their brand and brand awareness. So I do wonder if that's related.
Well, I was going to interject, but I mean, this is a perfect setup, because I think that wokeness in commercials, how every white guy in a commercial is stupid and needs help from either his wife or some minority black woman who steps in to save the day because she's a better driver, she's a better scientist, she's better at everything than the white guys do. So I think that wokeness was just the companies testing the water to see where the culture was going, and they were producing this content just because, like you said, all they really cared about was money in the first place. And now that they see that there's eyeballs and attention and money to be made in saying that white boys have great genes that makes them beautiful golden tan in the summer, and they've got the Zoomer perm going on, and everything is hunky-dory in their world, because for them it's all about making money, which goes to show a couple of things, that the fight on the cultural front that people like you especially are engaged in at Culturama, the fight that we've been engaged, even Javier Milei, libertarian of Argentina, says you have to fight the culture. These culture wars, they ultimately do matter, don't they?
Yes, they do. And, we all have to take a part of it one way or the other. Unfortunately, like that's how the zeitgeist operates. And that's what I talk about. Yeah, because sometimes, especially with like conversations relating to, it's how like we touch on OnlyFans, for example, or like some of these conversations, I think that sometimes are unnecessary. Like it should be sort of well done and understood. I think that, perhaps there is like a traditional ideal of beauty, for example. And the fact that we have to have these conversations back and forth every so often, like every few years, I think is unnecessary, but because people don't seem to get it, because a lot of this is common sense. And, I'm of the opinion that I think it's common sense that Sydney Sweeney would be considered perhaps more of a traditional beauty than I can't, I'm thinking of, I can't remember her name. Who's that like overweight black artist? Lizzo. Thank you. Yes, Lizzo.
Sorry, it's still early. Let's get you a box of Founding Flavors coffee, Danielle. I'll send you one. The Culturama blonde roast.
Exactly. So yeah, it is unfortunate, but that's how the dialectic operates. And sometimes people need to be reminded of that. And sometimes they need to be pushed back and towards more progressive ideals. So we understand that. I'm a firm believer in the dialectic, obviously, but that's just sort of like what it takes to participate in that. And that develops us as individuals as well as the culture. But we have seen a massive, extreme shifts almost in these conversations. Again, I think it's more of a reaction towards some of the major institutional changes and upheavals we've been experiencing since COVID, because that was frankly a really big deal for everyone in the world. So I think these are like reactionary ways that are happening, flowing from that. So it makes a little sense why it's a little bit caustic, these conversations, and we're seeing like major pushback one way and major pushback another, but that's just sort of part of what's part of being alive and a human.
Sydney Sweeney has provoked a massive response from this denim ads commercial. She mentioned her genes, having good genes, which is the double entendre for innate traits. And it's fascinating to me because James Lindsay calls them, some of these people who look at genes and their traits, your traits as sort of ingrained. He calls them the woke right. And then there's the woke left, which are the people who, again, believe that because of your genes, your behaviors typically, and what you'll become is ultimately determined majority-wise by your genetic inputs. So your outputs are going to be whatever the inputs were to a certain extent. To some extent, that's true. And I know you, in particular, Daniela, have spoken out against blank slateism or tabula rasa. So I'll be curious to hear your thoughts to this question. And I'm working out how I could formulate this, because I'm really deeply curious your thoughts on it. But when it comes to the concept of your intrinsic genetic makeup affects your outcomes, where do you stand on this? Because it would seem as if, what the woke left is angry at her for expressing what is something that she cannot change. You don't get to choose your genes, right? It would be like us being mad at a Chinese person for being born Chinese. I wonder what your take is on this whole situation. Like, do you believe that your genes are your destiny, that they're really predetermination? There is no really no free will. I think I've asked you this to a certain extent, but I mean, that's what these people seem to be locking us into, is that your genes are your destiny. Your genes, if you're white, then you're a Nazi and you're part of white supremacy. It's just as ridiculous, I feel like, for me to say, well, if you're a black person, that means that you're low IQ and you're going to steal, right? Because not all black people are low IQ and not all black people steal. What's your take on this debate?
Yeah, I'm afraid my answer is going to be quite boring. I think it's somewhere in the middle, unfortunately, and I don't like giving that answer because it upsets people, because, I don't pick one side or the other. Yeah, but, that's what the studies seem to indicate, and I clearly am not a geneticist. I'm not a, psychologist, a certified psychologist. But what I can tell you is that from what I have read, what I have looked at, and even in like early childhood studies or early childhood development studies, it does seem to indicate that there is a little bit of both, right? I don't think anyone can deny that genes and one's like genetic lineage does contribute in part to like temperament, or in part to maybe even intelligence to some degree. But you know, there and characteristics and characteristic development, which actually also does lead to intelligence. But on the other hand, there's a great deal of evidence suggesting that the context in what you're raised in, the resources you're given early on during your formative years, and even the nutrition that you have, you know, developed. And maybe this isn't like materialist Marxism. Some conservatives will think this is sounding like materialism right now. But frankly, it is true. The resources that you're provided during the formative years of your life do heavily contribute your temperament, intelligence, and characteristics as well.
Well,
and
remember,
how they develop.
Danielle, not all materialists are Marxists, because
that's true.
There are the objectivists, the Ayn Rand wing of the right. But please continue.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a lot of conservatives out there that, because they didn't give the answer they wanted.
Yes.
I've been used to being called like, oh, you're, a Marxist, which is like silly to me because this is common sense too. A lot of people on the far right don't seem to want to realize reality as well, because they want to be like straight up determinists in their genetic reality. And I just don't think that's accurate either, because there's extremes on both sides. And to understand the world, I think that we have to consider all aspects, and especially when it comes to development. And I think that understanding human development early in life, particularly early childhood, formation, is the key to understanding humanity in general. And like I said, from what I've seen, I'm no expert in either field, but it just seems to be both. And I think most people with nuance and with some level of intelligence will say, yeah, there's a little bit of both. I can't say to what degree though.
Daniella, have you described yourself as a Calvinist in the past, or am I imagining that?
No, I am a Calvinist, and as far as determinism is concerned, that's more of a spiritual matter, and I don't think one's salvation, for example, or the decisions they make that lead up to salvation is determined by genetics, but or even how you're raised. But that's like a different level. That's like a really
it is. Well, it's the metaphysics, right? So the question of the concept that I'm sort of playing with here is the idea of free will, essentially, because from everything I've heard from Calvinists and how they described their branch of faith is to suggest that there really is no such thing as free will. Everything is determined, and that would include all of the things in the material world, would it not?
In the way that we perceive it, yes. So like this is what and this is a whole nother conversation, but
it's a can of worms, Daniella, and it's too early for that, huh?
I can lay it down in simple terms, I guess. I'm a very simple person, so let me try to explain in simple terms. So essentially, whatever happens in the metaphysical realm, we can just say does manifest in the physical realm, obviously, in the ways that we make our decisions. But the source of that, I don't think is predetermined by genetics alone or by your family alone, right? I think that there is like two different layers here. So in the way that we manifest certain behaviors, and once again, Calvinism only relates to salvation specifically. I think there's more to that than just salvation as decisions you make that lead to salvation, but regardless. But I think that pinning it on one part, like pinning it on genetics alone, for example, is irresponsible and just foolish because it's not completely accurate. Clearly, like if that's the case, then why do exceptions exist? And I know exceptions aren't the rule, but they do exist and they do come up quite a bit within every generation. So that can't be, that alone. Otherwise, there would always be like a set rule for an outcome, right? I think that people fall into key archetypes when they are born. And I've written about this before. And I think understanding who you are and what your archetype is more of a determinant for what you will be and your destiny and so forth, rather than
what is my archetype, Daniella?
That's a really good question. That's a question that only you can answer, Austin.
No, I don't
can't
think so.
say.
I see you doing other people's archetypes here. I want you to read my palm right now.
I don't know. I don't know you like that well. But if I had to pin you based on like superficial features, I would say, maybe the creator archetype. Which is more of I call it like the Zeus archetype or the Jupiter archetype, because that's more of like a creator, more of a patriarchal figure, based on how you speak and your endeavor towards creation. So that's probably
there we go.
Like what I would say.
Yeah, I am something of a creator, and I've even made a tiny human almost by myself.
You go.
Somebody else had something to do with it. Hey, Daniella, this is great conversations, and I love the conversations that I hear you having with your amazing guests on your show. So tell us about what you got going on tonight on Culturama.
We have we're going to expose a few trade secrets that are happening actually between the U.S., India, and Russia. That's going to be really exciting. Some of the political warfare that's happening there, and I always end up talking about something along the lines of what we have just talked about. There's always a little bit of science, a little bit of culture, and some statistics that make people uncomfortable. So people are just going to have to tune in and see.
Okay, well then I guess we will have to tune in to see. And where can we tune in and see?
Yeah, so it's every Tuesday and Thursday, and today is Thursday. It starts at 5 p.m. PST, 7 p.m. CT on Rumble and other major streaming platforms on the Culturama podcast channel on Rumble.
Oh, by the way, which archetype are you, Daniella?
Yeah, I say it on my profile. I am what I call the Artemisian archetype, but that's basically the trickster archetype, but for the female version of it. Okay. That's firmly what I am. The trickster archetype is the most hermetic archetype. So I figured that that's definitely me if I was a guy, but the female version I call Artemisian.
There we go. She's Artemisian. Watch her tonight at rumble.com/Culturama. Daniella, thanks so much for getting up early with your time. And now I'm looking up Jungian archetypes this morning. So thanks for teaching us a little lesson too.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Austin.
Thanks, Daniella. Take care.
Another topic I want to cover real quick. Social media and journalism and the role it plays in this incident. And yes, guys, that's you.
Me?
That is you.
Okay.
Social media, the post that we've seen, does not depict the entire incident. That is one version of what occurred. At times, social media and mainstream media and their commentaries are a misrepresentation of the circumstances surrounding any given event.
This is the sheriff of the town, Cincinnati, Ohio, where the woman was beaten, looks possibly to death. I haven't seen an update on this case yet. In the street, the posts on social media, and this is me. Remember when I showed you the video the other day of the woman getting clocked by the people of strange origin on the streets of Cincinnati? A woman beating a woman, and her mouth is bleeding open, could obviously concussed, could be dead. Don't know the end of that story just yet. But it's not the police officers for not enforcing law and order. It's the social medias.
What that does, that causes us some difficulties in thoroughly investigating the activity and enforcing the law.
How does me making an X post about how you're incompetent or talking about you on my show, how does that interfere with your ability to do your job, Karen?
Because what happens, that social media post and your coverage of it distorts the content of what actually happened.
Get out of here, please. Got enough of that. Where's my The Rock microphone? Shut up, bitch. What a mess. Thank you guys for unlocking phase 2 of today's bonus content. It's great to have so much financial support from you guys every single day on the show. You know what it means? It means that the Wake Up America show is going to be here next month. We're coming up this September. It will be our 3-year anniversary. I've been podcasting this show professionally for 3 friggin' years. I'm old. It's amazing. Don't forget to introduce us to your friends. Word of mouth is the best of mouth. The best, well, maybe there's a little some things better with the mouth. Austin, stop it. Second best of mouth. My mouth. The motor mouth. Thank you for unlocking the second phase of the bonus content, which we will explore now. The Defense Against the Dark Arts. Your choose your own adventure. You chose this segment of Juche, North Korea's death cult of self-reliance. Let's talk about the most extreme, most brutally consistent authoritarian ideology still in force on the planet today. It's not Marxism. It's not Leninism. I'm talking about Juche, North Korea's state doctrine. Now, most Americans don't know this word, but if you want to understand how socialism mutates into full-blown tyranny, you need to know Juche. Juche is the political religion that governs every second of life in North Korea. excuse me, it means self-reliance, but this is just the sales pitch, self-reliance. The reality is that it is a doctrine of total obedience, forced isolation, and psychological slavery to the government. And here's how it came to be and what it teaches us about authoritarianism everywhere. So Juche was created by Kim Il-sung. He was the founder of North Korea shortly after World War II. At the time, North Korea had just been liberated from Japanese occupation. The Korean peninsula was split. The Soviets controlled the north, the Americans the south. Kim Il-sung wanted to build a uniquely Korean version of communism. So, like all good tyrants, he borrowed just enough Marxist language to sound like he was on the side of the people, and then rewrote the entire ideology to surround himself. The masses are the masters of the revolution, he said, but what he really meant was, I am the revolution. Juche, it emphasizes three core ideas: political independence, chaju; economic self-sustenance, charip; self-defense, chawi. That sounds good, right? It's sounds like something like Ron Paul might endorse. Political independence, economic self-reliance, military strength. It sounds like a libertarian dream, but here's the bait and switch. Under Juche, these aren't individual traits, they're national traits enforced by complete loyalty to the state, the government. The individual is not encouraged to be free. The individual is expected to submit, to sacrifice, and to serve. That is the Juche. It's a cult of the leader. Juche evolved quickly into Kim Il-sungism, which is a full-blown cult of personality around Kim Il-sung, then Kim Jong-il, now Kim Jong-un. Right? Imagine if George Washington were not just the father of this country, but you were required by law to have a portrait of him in your house, bow to it every morning, and report your neighbors if they do the same. That's Juche. School children sing hymns to the dear leader. News is 100% controlled. And the only foreign radio is forbidden. Internet doesn't really exist. The only movies allowed are ones produced by the state. And if you try to flee the country, not only will you be executed or imprisoned in a labor camp, so will your children and grandchildren. That's right, 3 generations of punishment. That's not a metaphor. That is policy. That is Juche. And remember the part about economic self-sustenance. Under Juche, North Korea rejects foreign trade and foreign investment. They believe that any dependence on any other country is dangerous. Sounds interesting. So they farm with oxen. They burn wood because they can't afford fuel. And they experience chronic food shortages because collectivized agriculture doesn't work. And then they refuse help out of pride. Between 1994 and 1998, during the so-called Arduous March, an estimated 2.5 million North Koreans starved to death. And yet they didn't open up. They doubled down. That's Juche. That is the quest to die for the leader, to die for an illusion of independence. Starve so the state can look strong. Juche teaches that all threats come from outside the country and that all truth comes from within. So the state builds a surveillance apparatus that makes the NSA look like amateur hour. Every citizen is part of a work unit where they are monitored and expected to report others. Your social class is determined by loyalty to the regime. It affects where you live, what food you get, and what job your child is allowed to have. Religious worship is forbidden unless it's the regime itself. You're not allowed to read, to speak, to think, or dream unless the government permits it. And the greatest trick of Juche is that it teaches people to be proud of this. Pride in suffering, pride in hunger, pride in being alone, pride in never questioning the party or the leader. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, Austin, that's terrible, but it's North Korea. Why should I care? Here's why. Because Juche is authoritarianism perfected. It's what happens when the state not only crushes dissent, but teaches people to love their chains. And it always starts the same way, with slogans like self-reliance and community over individual. Remember the law of Yante yesterday that we had that in the first defense against the dark arts class. With fear-mongering about foreign threats and literal internal enemies, this is about censorship in the name of safety, a little pride, a little fear, and a lot of lies. If you want to stop tyranny before it gets to that point, you have to recognize the early signs: forced conformity, cults of personality, economic isolationism, criminalizing dissent, indoctrination through education and media. We're not North Korea, but that doesn't mean that we are immune to the disease of collectivism and control. Juche reminds us that true self-reliance is individual, not national. Freedom is messy, not scripted. The truth must be discovered, not assigned. Juche is not just North Korea's tragedy. It's a cautionary tale for anyone who believes that the government can protect you better than you can protect yourself. It's what happens when independence is redefined to isolation, and when liberty dies not with a bang, but with a bow. Don't ever bow to a man who tells you that freedom means obeying him. Not in North Korea, not in America, not in anywhere. Thank you guys for everything you've done for the Wake Up America show. As you exit, where do you exit? Through the Grift Shop, of course, at thegriftshop.com. Check out our delicious Founding Flavors coffee. Thank you to Urs Mommy. It's nice to see you again. Drew Van Runkle, Quest Fanning, thank you for unlocking that bonus content. Old Dude 1, we're so glad and thankful to have you here, brother, asking some real big questions on the show. I wish I had some time to get to them, but unfortunately, I do not. So I hope that I will see you again tomorrow. Oh yeah, Friday, guys. Freedom Family Friday. It's the best. And of course, Freedom Arcade tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. You, me, and the Devil Makes 3. We're all hanging out with the Freedom Arcade. Have you guys joined our Discord server yet? You can see in the comments right now. I'm about to drop that Discord server in there so you guys can join us. We've got a Discord server for the For Liberty Network, guys, but we've also got channels for the Freedom Arcade, Culturama, Liberty Tonight, and a voice chat if you guys want to hang out with voice. Daniela is there, Brian Piotr is there, King Libertarian is there, I'm there, Steffi's there. All the fun kids are there. It's a great way to hang out whenever we're not live. So if you guys want to hang out, if you're feeling lonely during the day, just drop a chat over there in the Discord, guys. Help to join the For Liberty Network to build up the cause and build up the movement and build up this network. And of course, support our Freedom Family, which you'll see right back again here tomorrow on the Wake Up America show's For Liberty Network. See you guys. Have a good one.
Or The New Pilgrim's Progress by Mark Twain. Mark Twain's travel log from the Holy Land. At just 31, Mark Twain sailed to Europe and the Holy Land on the steamship Quaker City, an excursion that resulted in his first great literary success, The Innocents Abroad, or The New Pilgrim's Progress. Published in 1869, it remains one of the world's great travel narratives. In Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre, Twain was shown the tomb of Adam. How touching it was here in a land of strangers, far away from home, and friends and all who care for me, thus to discover the grave of a blood relative, he wrote of the site. True, a distant relation, but still a relation. This recognition of kinship stirred Twain to its profoundest depths. Overcome by emotion, he leaned upon a pillar and burst into tears. We don't ordinarily think of Mark Twain as a champion of Reagan-era family values, but in his way, he was. As touching as this might be, it was not quite accurate for Twain to have said he was in a land of strangers. By the time he and his fellow travelers got to Jerusalem, he had been in their company for more than 4 months and knew them about as well as he cared to. His experience of traveling with these other Americans was not altogether favorable. There's reason to suspect, in fact, their time together informed the anti-imperialism with which Twain would in later years be associated. The group's itinerary took them to Spain, France, Italy, and Greece before they arrived in Palestine, where what they knew as the Holy Land was located. Twain was not overly impressed with the natives of any of the countries the Quaker City pilgrims visited. The people of those foreign countries are very, very ignorant, he reported. Even the French were ignorant. In Paris, they just simply opened their eyes and stared when we spoke to them in French. We never did succeed in making those idiots understand their own language. At least the French lived in real cities, which could not be said for the Palestinians. The Quaker City vacationers saw much of what we know as Israel, then part of the Ottoman Empire, by horseback. Unlike the more pious travel writers of his day, Twain refused to paint Palestine or its people in glowing terms. It was a hopeless, dreary, heartbroken land, void of resources, and wherever he and the other tourists went, they found themselves mobbed by the usual assemblage of squalid humanity clamoring for money. Some of the men seemed fit, but all the women looked worn and sad and distressed with hunger. The little children were in a pitiable condition. They all had sore eyes and were otherwise afflicted in various ways. Twain made no distinctions among people. Jerusalem is composed of Muslims, Jews, Greeks, Latins, Armenians, Syrians, Copts, Abyssinians, Greek Catholics, and a handful of Protestants, and the languages spoken by them are altogether too numerous to mention. All the races and colors and tongues of the earth must be represented among the 14,000 souls that dwell in Jerusalem. Rags, wretchedness, poverty, and dirt are everywhere. Lepers, cripples, the blind, and the idiotic assail you on every hand. While Twain refused to prettify the Holy Land and had no patience with the preening piety of his fellow travelers, the experience moved him to an unexpected realization. Christ knew how to preach to these simple, superstitious, disease-tortured creatures. He healed the sick. Given the conditions in which these sad people eked out an existence, Twain expressed amazement that so many figures from the New Testament seem to have lived in well-maintained chapels, churches, and shrines of one kind or another. At Nazareth, he marveled at the Virgin Mary's living quarters, where she and Joseph watched the infant Savior play with Hebrew toys 1800 years ago, all under one roof and all clean, spacious, comfortable grottos. In Bethlehem, he found the grotto at the Church of the Nativity to be tricked out in the usual tasteless style, but was struck nonetheless to be where the very first Merry Christmas was uttered. Twain regarded these and other sites important to Christians with mock solemnity. At the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, he was shown a niche that was said to have contained at one time a piece of the true cross, discovered centuries before the Quaker City vacationers arrived. Their tour guides say it was stolen away a long time ago by priests of another sect, Twain wrote. That seems like a hard statement to make, but we know very well that it was stolen because we have seen it ourselves in several of the cathedrals of Italy and France. The travelers visited the chapel of St. Helena, also at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where the cross, the nails, and the crown of thorns had been discovered. These, alas, had also disappeared, stolen presumably. Priests of all denominations can visit this sacred grotto to weep and pray and worship the gentle Redeemer, Twain noted. Two different congregations are not allowed to enter at the same time, however, because they always fight. When one stands on the hill of Calvary, where the Savior was crucified, Twain wrote, one finds it all he can do to keep it strictly before his mind that Christ was not crucified in a Catholic church. Christianity would be wonderful, Twain suggested, if it weren't for Christians. His opinion of his fellow travelers was not much better than those of the pitiable inhabitants of the Holy Land. He thought they were stuffy and hypocritical. One shipmate was a clergyman, pompous as only a 19th century New England clergyman could be. This man of the cloth, Twain said, looks like he is waiting for a vacancy in the Trinity. Twain was by no means a spoilsport, party pooper, or a killjoy on the excursion. He played cards with the others, he played shuffleboard, he danced and drank. But he found most of them almost insufferable. Taken together, they constituted a strange menagerie of ignorance, imbecility, bigotry, and dotage, making it irresistible for him to record how that curious company conducted themselves in foreign lands. They could be so mean and so vicious and so outrageous in every way that this accomplished swearer could not collect the terms to express it in any less than 16 or 17 languages, he told a friend. That last vituperation is found in Twain's private letters, not in the Innocents Abroad, but even there, in an almost offhand way, He tells how these God-fearing people weep at sites sacred to their faith, then routinely pillage them of relics as souvenirs. Twain would see this played out on a vastly larger scale in years to come. He would emerge in the period of the Spanish-American War as an outspoken anti-imperialist, denouncing efforts to uplift less fortunate peoples while imprisoning and killing them, annexing their lands and plundering them of their resources. On the Quaker City trip, Twain had seen this stately matron named Christendom, as he would put it in the New York Herald, for what she was. Of course, there wasn't much for this stately matron to exploit in Palestine when Twain was there, though there would be in years to come. It would be instructive to know what Twain would make of President Donald Trump's wishes to turn Gaza into a combination Las Vegas and Disneyland for the profit of American investors. I suspect he would not approve. He had seen up close and personal how Americans too often conduct themselves overseas and did not find the spectacle edifying. Trump's favorite predecessor, incidentally, is President William McKinley, Commander-in-Chief during the Spanish-American War. Of course, Twain himself profited handsomely from the book he wrote based on his Quaker City adventures. He offered no apologies for this. The Innocents Abroad was a bestseller, putting the bachelor in a position to take a bride. "I want a good wife," he told a shipmate. "I want a couple of them, if they are particularly good." The prospective family man discussed the matter with another passenger, an amiable young fellow from Elmira, New York. This was Charlie Langdon, the son of a well-established New England coal baron. Langdon showed Twain a miniature portrait of his sister, Olivia. Twain was smitten. Back on terra firma, a meeting was arranged. "I'll harass that girl, and harass her till she'll have to say yes," he told another friend. In time, she did. It was a long and happy marriage, and she accompanied him on the worldwide lecture tour that he wrote about years later in Following the Equator. Twain, with all his opinions, could not have been the easiest traveling companion, but he was an entertaining and, as future generations can see, perceptive one.